Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you, and, well, with everyone listening right off the bat. When I first picked up the stack of documents we're covering today,
Oh,
I flipped to the front page to make sure I hadn't mixed up two completely different files.
It is a bit of a jarring experience at first glance, isn't it?
Jarring is putting it mildly, because on one page, we have this incredibly dense, rigid vocabulary. I mean, we're seeing terms like dialectical materialism, the negation of negation, quantitative to qualitative change.
Yeah.
It reads like a textbook on Marxist economics or a history of the Soviet Union.
Exactly. It's the language of Hegel, Marx, and Engels. It's usually reserved for discussing class struggle or the history of industrial production.
Right. But then you turn the page, and suddenly those same exact logical tools are being applied to ghosts.
To ghosts, yeah.
And reincarnation, and how to technically, scientifically become a Buddha. It is just the most unexpected mashup I think we've ever had.
It certainly stands out. What we are looking at today are excerpts from the writings of Xu Feng, specifically a collection titled Philosophy Dialectics. And, while it seems weird on the surface, the author's mission is actually quite fascinating.
He's trying to bridge science and spirituality.
He is, but not in the usual let's all get along kind of way. He's not saying they're separate but equal. No, he is arguing that spirituality, it needs to be stripped of its mystery. He wants to replace faith with logical deduction.
So it's not a leap of faith anymore.
Not at all. His premise is that if you use the scientific laws of dialectics, the study of how things change and relate, you don't just believe in the afterlife, you prove it exists structurally.
Which is a massive claim. Usually when we talk about the afterlife or the soul, the whole point is that it's a mystery. It's the great unknown.
You have to take that leap.
Exactly. And Xu Feng argues that is precisely why traditional religion is failing modern people. So the mission for this deep dive is to take him up on that challenge. We are going to unpack the 3 specific laws of dialectics he lays out. We're going to see how he uses them as a roadmap for everything from personal behavior to understanding what happens when we die to, and this part really surprised me, predicting the future of the human family structure.
It gets pretty radical, especially that last part.
It does. But let's start at the beginning. Before he drops these 3 laws on us, he sets up a framework. He draws a very sharp distinction between philosophy and dialectics. How does he separate the two?
He uses a biological analogy that I think is really helpful. He says to think of philosophy as the body.
The body, okay.
It's the organism, the broad theory of the world, sort of the container for wisdom. But dialectics are the eyes.
The eyes of the body.
Exactly. Without dialectics, philosophy is blind. It's just guessing or theorizing in the dark. Dialectics is the mechanism of seeing. It's how you spot connections, how you see that A leads to B, and how you identify the contradictions that actually drive reality forward.
So his core argument is that philosophy isn't just poetry.
No, it belongs to science. It requires empirical evidence and rigid logic.
And it's interesting because he's actually quite critical of his own past teaching methods in the text. He admits that he didn't always use this scientific approach.
That was a surprising moment of self-reflection. He mentions that previously he relied on the traditional religious toolkit. He quoted the gods, the Buddhas, the saints.
Right.
But he hit a wall. He found those teachings were too empty or vague for people who didn't already have faith.
He specifically mentions Laozi.
Right. He does. He quotes Laozi's description of the Tao, where Laozi calls it trance-like and vague. And Xu Feng basically says, look, if I tell a modern skeptical person that the ultimate truth of the universe is trance-like, they are going to roll their eyes and walk away.
Right, it's not actionable.
It's like trying to navigate a ship through fog with a map that just says, maybe. You can't build a life on trance-like.
So he pivots.
Precisely. He wants to provide a framework where a non-believer can look at the logic and say, okay, I don't need to feel this in my heart. I can see the equation. I can prove it.
So let's look at the equation. Let's test this proof. This brings us to the first major law he breaks down. The law of the unity of opposites.
This is the foundation. If you've taken a Philosophy 101 class, you probably know this as the idea that you can't have up without down.
North without south.
Exactly. Opposites define each other. But the source takes this concept and stretches it way beyond simple directions.
He weaponizes it for metaphysics.
That's a great way to put it. He argues that this binary structure isn't just a linguistic trick. It is the fundamental architecture of the entire universe. So he starts with what we know. We have a material world. We can touch it. We live in it.
That's the positive factor.
Right. And, well, logic dictates that for the positive factor to exist, there must be a negative factor to balance it. Therefore,
There have to be an anti-material world.
there must be. He's saying the afterlife isn't a religious promise, it's a structural necessity. Like a counterbalance on a crane.
The universe would be incomplete without it.
It would collapse logically, in his view.
Yeah.
If there's a yang realm, life, there must be a yin realm, death. If there are humans, there must be spirits. You cannot have a coin with only one side.
Okay, I see the logic. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Even if I accept that structurally an anti-material world exists, why does that matter to me on a Tuesday morning? How does that change how I live my life?
And that is the key question. The author argues that once you accept this logic, it demands a complete shift in your planning horizon.
Planning horizon.
Think about it. Most of us plan for a timeline of about, 80 to 100 years.
If we're lucky.
Right. We worry about our career, our 401k, our mortgage. But if the law of unity of opposites is true, your physical life is only half of your existence.
So he's saying most of us are drastically underinsured for the second half.
We are completely ignoring the second half of the equation. He argues you need to plan for your existence in the anti-material world with the same rigor and the same investment strategy that you plan for your retirement.
Wow. And this leads to a really interesting take on human nature in the text, too. He doesn't seem to buy into the idea that people are born good.
No, he rejects the idea that humans are born purely good or purely sinful. Based on this law, he says humans are a unity of contradictions. We are good and evil wrapped in one skin.
We're the conflict in motion.
Exactly. And that management is what determines where you go next. Which, that brings us directly to the second law. Because we know we have to prepare for this other side. How do we actually do it?
This is where he introduces the law of the interchange of quality and quantity. This is the one that really reminded me of high school chemistry class.
It's the classic boiling water analogy, isn't it? In Dialectics, this law states that you can add quantity to something for a long time without seeing any visible change. You heat water, 50 degrees, 80 degrees, 90 degrees.
It's just hot water.
It looks exactly the same. But at 100 degrees, the quantity hits a saturation point, a tipping point.
Right.
And suddenly the quality changes. The water stops being water and becomes steam. It transforms. Now, Xu Weifeng applies this to the soul.
So there's no magic switch. You don't just decide to be a Buddha on a weekend retreat.
No, it's a grind. It is entirely about the accumulation of quantity. He outlines what looks like a mathematical formula for divinity. To change your quality from human to celestial or divine, you have to accumulate divinity, bit by bit, action by action, thought by thought.
But this was the part that actually creeped me out a little. Because the source is very clear that this formula works in reverse, too.
It absolutely does. And this is his warning. He says, if you focus only on your base instincts, if you just eat, sleep, fight, and focus on physical pleasure, you are accumulating the quantity of an animal.
You're banking animal points.
Essentially, and the law is neutral. If you keep doing that, eventually you will hit that saturation point, your quality will shift, and in the next loop of existence, logically, you must become an animal.
It's not a punishment.
No, not from an angry God who is judging you. It's just the physics of the soul. You become what you accumulate.
That is terrifyingly logical. It's like a cosmic RPG video game. If you grind the ghost quests, you level up as a ghost.
That's a fantastic analogy. And he quotes the famous line, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." But he's not using it as an inspirational poster. He means it structurally. Every single step is a deposit into a specific quality account.
You are always building your next form. Wow. So we've got the structure of the universe with the unity of opposites, and we've got the method for personal growth with quality and quantity. Now we move to the third law, and this is where the source zooms out from the individual to the societal. This is the law of negation of negation.
This is the concept that history isn't a flat circle, it's a spiral. New things inevitably defeat and replace old things, but we have to be careful with definitions here.
New doesn't just mean recent.
Right, and old doesn't just mean ancient. He warns us not to be fooled by shiny packaging. A new thing is something that conforms to the objective laws of development. An old thing is something that goes against them.
He gives the example of a new religion.
He does. A cult might pop up today. It might have a cool logo and a website. But if its essence is just rehashing old dogmas or superstitions, it is still the old.
Okay, but then he applies this negation logic to something very personal to most people. He talks about marriage and the family unit. And he doesn't pull any punches here.
No, this is probably the most provocative part of this social commentary. He looks at the rising divorce rates and the increasing number of single people. Now, a traditionalist might look at that and say, society is crumbling, we need to go back.
But looking through the lens of dialectics.
Through this lens, Xu argues those statistics are proof that the traditional family structure is an old thing. It has served its purpose in history, but now it is becoming an obstacle. He predicts it is destined to be negated.
That's a massive claim. Is he saying the high divorce rate is actually progress?
In a structural sense, yes. He argues it's a signal that we are transitioning to a new form of communal production and living that will replace the isolated family unit entirely.
So the nuclear family is outdated.
He thinks the nuclear family is an agrarian tool that doesn't fit the future of human evolution. And he admits this isn't going to be a fun transition. He uses the word torturous.
Torturous.
It's going to be painful. But the dialectical view is that resisting it is futile. If it's an objective law of history, you can't stop it. The new always wins. Attempting to hold on to the traditional marriage structure, in his view, is like trying to stop the tide with a bucket.
It's interesting how he reframes it. It removes the moral failure. It's not that people these days can't commit. It's that the institution itself is being negated by history.
It replaces guilt with historical determinism. It's a very Marxist way of looking at relationships.
So we have these three laws guiding us. But underlying all of this, the ghosts, the behavior, society, is a concept I found really fascinating. It's what I'd call cosmic accounting.
Yes, the conservation of energy. He treats the universe as a zero-sum game. The total energy is constant.
So walk us through the bank account analogy he uses, because this really clarifies the why should I be good question.
It's very transactional. He argues that if you give or sacrifice in this world, if you put out energy, labor, kindness without taking an immediate reward, you aren't losing anything.
Because energy can't be destroyed.
Right. So where does it go? It goes into your anti-material savings account. You are depositing treasure in the afterlife.
But the flip side.
The flip side is brutal. If you take too much here, if you enjoy, consume, hoard, and seek status without giving back, you are withdrawing from your future balance.
So the billionaire living the high life who ignores the poor isn't just mean, he's technically bankrupting his soul.
According to this theory, yes. He is depleting his future existence to pay for his present comfort. Xu calls this a necessary program of the universe. It's not about a judgmental God pointing a finger. It's just balancing an equation.
And this conservation logic applies to life itself. This was the part that really made me stop and just stare at the ceiling for a minute. He uses the analogy of water on Earth.
The conservation of life theory. It's a compelling metaphor, he says. Look at the water on Earth. It might be in the ocean, it might be rain, it might be steam, or a glacier. But the total amount of water molecules is roughly constant.
It just changes form.
It just changes form. And he thinks souls work the same way. The total number of souls in the universe is a fixed constant, a definite number.
Okay, but I have to ask the obvious question here. If that's true, where do babies come from, spiritually speaking? If the number is fixed, but the human population on Earth has doubled in the last 50 years, the math doesn't seem to work.
And this is where his theory gets really wild. Logic dictates that for a new birth to happen, there must be a transfer. A soul must arrive from somewhere else.
From the deaths of other beings. Reincarnation.
Reincarnation, but strictly as a transfer of energy. But to answer your population question, if humans are increasing, where are those extra souls coming from?
Right, are we printing new souls?
No, he implies we are draining other pools. The extra human souls are coming from animals that have died and upgraded because they accumulated enough human quality, or, and this is where it gets sci-fi, from other dimensions.
36-dimensional space. That was the phrase in the text.
That's the one. He posits that souls can travel between dimensions. So if Earth's population spikes, it might mean souls are migrating here from a different plane of existence, or that mass extinctions of animals are fueling human births.
A closed-loop system.
No death, no life.
It really reframes the idea of a population boom, doesn't it? It's not just more people, it's a migration of consciousness.
And it connects back to that quality-quantity law we talked about. It all ties together. If you believe this, then every living thing, your dog, your neighbor, a bacteria, is just a vessel for a soul that is currently at a certain quality level. And that level is constantly moving up or down based on what they accumulate in this lifetime.
It paints a picture of a universe that is incredibly busy, mechanically speaking. There's this constant flow of energy, souls swapping bodies, dimensions exchanging population.
History negating the present, it's a hive of activity,
Yeah.
and it strips the sentimentality out of it. That's what strikes me most.
How so?
Well, usually when we talk about the afterlife, it's very emotional, right? Reuniting with loved ones, eternal peace. But Shofeng presents it as a mechanism. It's a machine, a dialectical machine that runs on contradiction and accumulation.
Which, oddly enough, might be comforting on people.
I think so. If you are someone who trusts science and logic, religious faith can feel like a leap into the dark. But if someone tells you, no, look, it's just the law of conservation of energy applied to consciousness, that feels like something you can grasp.
It makes the spiritual world feel like a logical certainty rather than a wish.
Exactly. And it gives you a different lens to view the world. When you see a divorce, it's not just a tragedy, it's the negation of negation at work.
When you see someone struggling but being kind, they aren't losing. They're banking deposits for the anti-material world.
And when you look at yourself, you aren't just a person living a life. You are a collection of opposing forces, human and spirit, good and evil, slowly accumulating the quality that will determine your next form.
It's heavy stuff, but fascinating to see these Marxist tools applied this way.
It connects the dots in a way we rarely see.
So as we wrap up, there's one thought that this source material leaves lingering. We talked about tomorrow always negating today. There's a comfort in that, knowing that difficulties will pass.
Yeah.
But there's also that challenge that the things we think are permanent, like our family structures, might just be the old things waiting to be swept away.
It forces you to ask, what is the new thing that is currently struggling to be born? And are we helping it, or are we standing in its way?
And I want to leave you with a provocative thought based on that conservation of life theory. If the source is right and the number of souls is constant, and if every birth requires a transfer from somewhere else, essentially we're all just playing musical chairs on a cosmic scale.
That's a vivid image. The music eventually stops for everyone.
Exactly. So the question is,
Nice.
with the habits you are building today, with the quality you are accumulating right now, when the music stops and the cycle rotates, where's your seat going to be? Are you upgrading to the divine, or are you sliding back down the evolutionary ladder?
That is the ultimate question of the dialectical life.
Something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep connecting the dots, and we'll see you next time.